If I asked you what your business was worth right now, could you actually tell me? And the truth is you probably couldn't. And fear not, because I was in the same position as you. I was running a marketing agency, 80 people, multi-year figures in revenue, and I did not know what my business was worth until I did this exercise I'm going to show you in the video. So in this, I'm going to show you three main things. Number one, how to value your business, what multiples affected, and most importantly, the 4 factors that will change those multiples, including the number one thing that trips up a lot of first-time entrepreneurs. So let's start off with the most important thing, which is the right number. So here's the first thing they need to understand. If you're running a service-based business, the number one metric is on adjusted EBITDA. I mean, so many entrepreneurs who think they're going to be valued on revenue somehow, but for most of these businesses, it is on adjusted EBITDA. But what does adjusted EBITDA mean? EBITDA is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Basically, hello words, but really all it means is this, your true profit. When you take away all the random costs and you take away the lower salary that you're paying yourself, what is the true cost of running this business? So let's say you run an agency business, is doing 5 million a year, and let's say your net profit that you say is 500,000, but you're paying yourself, let's say 50K. What a buyer will do is they will say, well, you're paying yourself 50K, but like a proper CEO would pay themselves, say 100K. And so what they would do is that they will then add on 50K to your cost. So rather than the 500,000, actually it's 450,000. And they will add on all these different costs to say, what would happen if we truly were to run this business? And that will give you your true adjusted EBITDA. And that's the number that they'll place multiples on. And you don't want to be surprised by this. So what I encourage a lot of people to do is every year go to your accountant and say, I want my adjusted EBITDA numbers, because that's going to give you the correct foundation to then value your business in the future. Okay, so we know EBITDA is the foundation, but now we need to think about multiples. Now, multiples is just simple. It's a number that is used to multiply your EBITDA numbers to then give you a valuation. Now, multiples differ across industry, and I'm going to tell you 4 types of industries, the most common industries, what multiples are in that range and how buyers think about it. Now, the number one thing you need to understand is a reason why a multiple will change is solely because of one word, and that is risk. If your business seems riskier, buyers will place a lower premium. If your business seems less risky, then buyers will then place a higher premium. So every single thing you need to think about in your business as to how to value it is, how do I eliminate risk so that I can have a higher valuation? So there are 4 types of businesses I want to walk through and give you their valuation range. So the first is any service-based business. We're talking consultancies, agencies, etc. Now they can be valued at between 3 to 6x EBITDA. The reason why it's relatively low is because it is a people-intensive business, and to replicate and scale it is actually pretty hard. However, sometimes you can get up to 6x, which is incredibly good, and that is if you have some kind of specialization in place which can help the buyer to know exactly how to replicate the business across different geographies and across different customers. The second type of business is brick and mortar businesses. Now these guys get hammered. They're basically between 2 to 4x EBITDA. And the problem is that they have high fixed costs, they have high labor costs, and it's not as easy to scale as potentially like an agency or a consultancy. Now the third one is content and media businesses. So these are businesses like newsletters or communities, things like, for example, The Hustle, which sold to HubSpot. Now those ones are a lot more scalable, and as a result, they can typically get between 4 to 7x EBITDA, which is actually extremely good. The reason why is because they can be replicated and scaled much easier than, say, a service-based business, but also, of course, more than a brick and mortar business. And then the final one is any recurring revenue business. Now, if you're valuing it on profit, those businesses can go from anything from 5x to, I've seen 10x. And the reason why is because they have these long-standing partnerships. And again, buyers can look at it and go, well, they have long-term contracts, which means if I buy the business now, the revenue is going to be there in the future. So remember, everything in terms of how to value your business is based on how can you reduce the risk to a potential buyer, because that's going to be the way that you truly are able to raise your premiums. Those are the general ranges, but if you wanted something a bit more specific to your business, there are 2 ways to do it. Number one is to use AI. So go into ChatGPT or Claude, I prefer Claude, and do a deep research, which basically said, here is my business, it does this for these sort of customers, this is the revenue and this is the profit. I want you to find 10 similar companies that have sold in the last 5 years, and I want you to tell me what their revenue and profit and what their multiple was, if you can. what that will do is that it would then go online and it would give you some more tangible numbers so you can pair that up as well as the industry ranges that I've given you. Now, the second thing, if you wanted to move beyond AI, is to actually go online on these online marketplaces and look for what similar companies to yours are selling for. So I really like this website called Quite Light Brokerage, and you can go on it and it will tell you what the business is, what their asking price is, and often it can even tell you what it actually sold for. So now you can get a very good idea of what the market is saying companies like yours are truly valued for, and that is a very, very eye-opening experience. So we've gone through EBITDA, we've also gone through how your multiple changes across industries. So now we're gonna talk about the juicy stuff, the stuff that you really wanna know, which is very simple, which is what is actually gonna influence my multiples. And I'm gonna tell you these 4 main things, and we're gonna start off with number 1, the one that so many founders, especially first-time entrepreneurs, they dismiss because they just don't know it actually is important. So that is revenue quality. So what is revenue quality? Basically, it means how good is your revenue? You said you're doing 5 million. All right, sweet. But then is it actually proper? Is it quality? Premium 5 million or is it Wasteman 5 million? So let's talk about premium 5 million. So let's say you take 2 marketing agencies. You're both doing 5 million a year top line. You're doing $1 million in profit. One of them is serving, say, startups, and the other is serving mid-market brands. That company that's serving startups is basically going to be valued less because startups are always going out of business, they got bad payment terms, whereas the guys who are servicing mid-market people, they are serving premium people who aren't going to go out of business anytime soon. For example, in my last company, Fanbytes, at the beginning, we were serving what I can only describe as Wasteman clients. Wasteman clients were taking 6 months to pay us and they were always going out of business. And then afterwards, what was happening was that we then started going up to the mid-market, and that made our business more durable and much more defensible. So it's very important that you understand that revenue quality is a big thing that's going to change the multiple of your business, and the more that you can go to better durable clients, the higher your multiple and the higher your valuation. The second most important thing people forget is growth rate. Now, buyers are not buying your history, actually they're buying your future. Here's what I mean. So let's say that we both run marketing agencies and we're both doing the same amount of revenue. Let's say 5 million, and let's say our profits are $1 million in profit. But my marketing agency has been growing for 20% every single year over the last 3 years. Your marketing agency has been growing, let's say 20% and then 10% and then 5%, so it's declining. I will get a higher multiple. The reason why is because I have a growth rate that shows that is increasing, and the buyer can then predict and say, well, it's been growing this fast, so in the future it's going to grow as fast or even faster. And so remember that buyers are basically buying for future cash flow and not just what you've done in the past. And so this is why I tell so many founders, but they don't want to listen to me, is that you want to sell when things are going very, very well, not when things are flatlining. So many people want to just squeeze out every bit of revenue and profit from their business. But the truth is, if you sell when things are going very well and you're growing very fast, you would actually end up getting a much higher multiple and a much higher valuation than if you just waited to just be at the top, because buyers buy your future and not your history. All right, number 3 is risk profile. Now, remember earlier I said that basically buyers are looking at risk, and the more risky your business, the lower the multiple, and the less risky your business, the higher the multiple. Now, there are 3 main risks that buyers look for, and is also what I look for anytime I'm buying or selling a business. Now, the first risk is something that we call a key man risk, and that is basically all the information and all the ways of how to run this business is that in the head of the founder. So I'm going to tell you a story, which is about 6 months ago, we're looking at buying a gardening business. And this business was doing very well. It was doing 10 million a year. It was doing about 3 million in profit, but everything was basically in the founder's head. And that therefore meant that we knew the founder, if we were to buy the business, we'd have to get rid of the founder. And we knew that as a result, everything would go with that founder. And even worse, they even had a really good marketing person who basically was the one who ran all the funnels and everything else. And that person was also such a key man that it ended up meaning that we didn't go ahead with buying that business because we realized that it wasn't actually valuable. It was very profitable, but it wasn't particularly valuable. The second thing is channel dependency. That is a key risk. What is channel dependency? It's basically saying do you have a ton of your revenue coming from one key channel? So a good one of this is we were looking at buying a e-com business, and the e-com business was making all its money primarily from Google ads. Google ads, great, it was amazing, but the problem was what happens when a bigger competitor with more money just comes in and just outbids you. then you've basically screwed. And so that therefore meant that that business, which should have been valued at, I think, 12 million, we ended up making an offer of 6 million because we were really, really concerned about the channel dependency. And the last I heard, that business actually sold for 7 million. So a lot lower than what their projected valuation should have been, because they were having so much channel dependency that what they should have done was actually gone and maybe utilize Facebook ads or utilize Instagram ads in order to be a lot more defensible. And then the third thing, and I'm not even gonna labor this point, is basically around no systems. Now we know this, we know you should create SOPs, but like, let me tell you a story of how that actually has really come to bite a lot of founders. So I advise this paid ads agency. They're doing phenomenally well. They're doing 8 million a year. They're doing 2 million in profit. But the problem is that they have no systems. And so everything is just communicated in Slack. Everything is just sent over emails. There's no actually productized way for them to run campaigns. And everything almost sounds like they're starting from scratch. And so we got an offer to sell the business to a private equity company. And what happened was the PE guys actually backed out because they realized that what they were basically buying was just a bunch of conversations between the founder and a bunch of clients, as opposed to a productized system. And so if you are an entrepreneur, it actually helps you if you take 1 week every 3 months to just map out your SOPs and map out your systems, because in doing that, you're actually going to drive your multiple even higher and also drive your valuation higher. Don't be that guy who goes and wants to value their business and realizes that because they didn't take out the time to build out processes and systems, they actually don't have anything valuable. Now, the fourth and the most important thing is also something Uncle Warren talks about a lot, which is strategic fit with the buyer. Now, most founders think basically they'll wake up one day and be like, I want to sell my business, and then boom, someone comes in, hella cash, and then they leave. That's not how it works. Now, there are two types of buyers. There are financial buyers, and then there are strategic buyers. Financial buyers are like PE guys, so value you based on profit. But if you want the big bucks, you got to sell to a strategic buyer who basically buy your business because it helps them to achieve something. So there are 3 reasons why a strategic buyer will buy your company. Number 1 is access to a new market. Number 2 is access to a customer base. And then number 3 is access to a capability set. So when we talk about access to a new market, it literally could mean that you have access to a geography that they don't have. So for example, a lot of UK founders make a lot of money when they sell to their US competitors who are trying to then come into the UK. Because what they say is, rather than building out our own capabilities in the UK, what we're actually going to do is just buy the company who is the biggest in that space. And that's worked incredibly well. The second is access to a customer base. So my friend Sampar founded a company called The Hustle, was a newsletter for entrepreneurs. He sold that company to HubSpot. And the reason why is because HubSpot wanted access to that community of entrepreneurs, and they were prepared to pay a lot of money to access that customer base who would then eventually use HubSpot. And then the third is access to a capability set. So my company, FanBytes, got bought by BrainLabs because we had a very good influencer marketing capability and BrainLabs didn't have that. And so as a result, they said, we're going to buy you so we can add it into our overall suite. So for yourself as an entrepreneur, what you want to do is think, what is the reason why a strategic will buy me? Is it because I have access to a certain geography? Is it because I own a certain set of customers? Or is it because I'm very good at this very defined thing, which will mean that they're going to pay a premium in order to access it? So those are the 3 steps to value your business. You find your right profit number, you get your ballpark multiple, and then you understand what moves those multiples up and down. Just by doing this, you'll be ahead of 99% of other entrepreneurs. And if you want help in growing and scaling your own agency business, sign up for our founder intensive. You work directly with me and my team to grow your business and make it something sellable. It's in the link in the bio. Peace, catch you, make more money.